Good day to members of the media and the listening public. Countries worldwide are tasked with implementing effective policy solutions to address the unanticipated social and economic changes brought about by COVID-19 pandemic. In these unprecedented times, leaders and governments must ensure that they remain resilient and laser focused on implementing critical policy responses. In that vein, the Ministry of Labor is working towards achieving its mission of establishing effective policies that help foster the expansion of jobs and economic growth. In doing so, the objectives of the ministry are to utilize labor policy to minimize the adverse effects of the global pandemic on our local workforce, to provide social support and employment services for Bermudians' unemployed and underemployed populations, and to facilitate the requisite supply of labor for jobs demanded by the labor market. The direct linkage between employment and the state of our economy is evident. Therefore, we must meet our objectives to ensure that our economy works best for all Bermudians. To address our economic condition, the ministry is using managed immigration as one of the strategic tools to support economic growth. While this tool will assist in improving the economy, we recognize that it will not be enough. The initiatives undertaken by this ministry attest to its steadfast commitment to remedy the social and economic challenges facing Bermuda. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, this government has provided over $58 million in unemployment benefits to assist those displaced from the workforce. This critical policy intervention provided social protections to many Bermudians. Through financial assistance reform initiatives, we are repositioning the department so that employment support is a critical and mandatory feature provided to every able-bodied individual receiving benefits. The reform aims to strengthen education, training, and employment services to recipients of financial assistance. There are currently approximately 400 additional families receiving social and economic support from the Department of Financial Assistance to help sustain them since the onset of the pandemic. This government made a promise to the people of Bermuda that no person shall go hungry. As the Ministry of Labor, it is our goal that we ensure the promise is kept. To provide financial protection for all Bermudians, in the event of job loss, the ministry is establishing the Unemployment Insurance Program, which will ensure funds are readily available when needed. Consultation with stakeholders have already begun in this regard. Additionally, the Wage Commission, chaired by Mr. Cordell Riley, will recommend minimum and living wage rates to help support struggling families whose wages do not cover their basic needs. The aim is to increase the quality of life for low-income earners, allowing persons to provide for themselves and their families. After receiving the Wage Commission report, the government will table a wage bill in Parliament that will establish a statutory minimum wage and a national living wage. Improvements of productivity is one of the critical components needed to facilitate meaningful growth in the economy. To create an environment conducive to productivity and empowerment of the labor force, the government provides additional benefits and protections through our strengthening of the Employment Act. The amendments that now form part of the law entitles employees to 30-minute meal breaks after working continuously for 5 hours. It ensures employers have a workplace policy against bullying and sexual harassment, and revises what constitutes an independent contractor to avoid abuse. In response to the economic crisis, the Ministry of Labor unveiled the National Reemployment Strategy in September 2020, designed to get people back to work. The overarching objectives of this strategy are threefold: to reduce current unemployment, to prevent future unemployment, and to facilitate the ease of finding employment. In order to meet these objectives, the strategy focuses on creating employment opportunities, enhancing the supply of labor, promoting equality and equity in the labor market, building a more robust workforce through information training and education. To promote job opportunities for Bermudians, the ministry has placed a moratorium on 41 additional occupations, which now brings the total number of closed jobs to 53. They include administrative assistants, handyman, HR office managers, reporters, journalists, waiter servers, and electricians. This decision restricts employment for guest workers while enabling Bermudians to take advantage of more available jobs. The new St. Regis Hotel is scheduled to open in April 2021. The government has been working directly with St. Regis to ensure that Bermudian hospitality professionals and Bermudians interested in working in the hospitality industry have an opportunity to work at the hotel. Reemployment strategy initiatives undertaken to date include the following: utilizing professional recruitment agencies to match talented workers to local job opportunities by connecting qualified Bermudians to employers with current job vacancies. Facilitating training and development programs which have provided reskilling and upskilling opportunities to over 110 people in the following categories: cleaning technician training, administrative assistant training, horticulture training, learn to earn restaurant training, food and beverage, waiter server training, computer literacy training, digital literacy for administrative professionals. Implementing the graduate training program that provides paid internships allowing young Bermudians to gain industry experience in their area of study and benefit from expert guidance to build their personal brand. Additionally, all participants will receive career readiness training that will include modules on developing your brand, emotional intelligence and communication, diversity and inclusion, and office etiquette. The government will continue to work on behalf of the people of Bermuda. In that regard, the ministry's sole focus is leveraging the departments within its purview to effectively and strategically help get our economy back on track and achieve a productive workforce that is even better than pre-COVID. While much has been done to support our people, the ministry recognizes that we have much more to do. The government cannot do it alone. Our success as a country will only come about through partnerships with local businesses. Together, we can and must do our part to create an environment that provides opportunities for Bermudians, especially our young people who have the skills to excel in the workplace. It is through working together that Bermuda will see its best days. I urge persons currently seeking employment to register with the Department of Workforce Development to take advantage of the current and future opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. At this time, I welcome questions from the media.
Thank you, Minister. You mentioned the legislation coming up on the minimum wage and living wage. Is that saying that we're likely to see those become a reality during the next session of Parliament?
It is my intention that we will receive the recommendation from the Wage Commission by the end of this month, and then we will move to ensure that we place a wage bill in the House of Parliament prior to the end of this parliamentary period.
Obviously, they're the ones who deal with all the stakeholders. Have you, as Minister, been approached by any business owners or folks in the community who say that imposing a minimum wage will hurt their particular line of business? Is that a concern that's been raised with you?
I believe that part of the report will feature a consultation component, but I haven't directly received any negative feedback regarding the minimum wage from employer groups.
Thank you. And my last one is just, are you able to elaborate any further on the unemployment insurance program when we're likely to see that?
We're in a consultation phase.
Yeah.
We're currently consulting with members of the Labor Advisory Council on a way forward. And once we receive the consultation feedback, we'll move forward with providing recommendations to the Minister of Finance, who will ultimately be responsible of managing that program moving forward.
So thank you. Appreciate you.
Minister, you just said that you were expecting to take something to Parliament before the end of the, were you saying the end of the year or the end of the term?
The end of the year. So I consider the parliamentary year to be the year between the Durham speeches being laid on.
So end of the year, okay. End of the parliamentary year. The other thing was, so I was interested in, could you just tell us the difference between the the national living wage and the minimum wage?
And so when we look at a minimum wage is more of a quantitative exercise. So you get a methodology that derives a minimum wage. A living wage is more of a quantitative and qualitative exercise where you take into consideration other things. So you have a methodology that you will derive basic numbers, but then you have to apply it to your economy in terms of how it impacts one's quality of life. And so a living wage focuses more on quality of life, while a minimum wage is more of a mathematical exercise, and they use two completely different methodologies to derive those numbers.
So you're saying the minimum wage, you take the minimum wage and then determine the national living wage, is that what you're saying?
They are exclusive exercises, and so you develop a minimum wage independent of a living wage.
Okay, so what I'm really trying to figure out is how does this affect me? I'm a someone looking to get a certain amount of money to live my life.
Mm-hmm.
Normally people talk about a minimum wage. You're saying no one should be working for less than this or whatever.
Correct. So a minimum wage is a statutory wage rate that will be in legislation, that no one can get paid underneath below this amount of money. When we start to talk about a living wage, it is, in order for a person to have a decent quality of life, this is the wage that one should receive. One is more of a standard, and the other one is more of a statutory rate.
So there could be a difference between these two.
There should certainly be a difference between a minimum wage and a living wage.
Okay. You were talking about the closed categories. So what sort of feedback have you had about that? Some time ago you announced the changes. You added 40 or 41 jobs. Has there been any feedback at all about that?
I haven't received negative feedback regarding the closed categories on a broad scale. Certainly certain occupational categories, employers are saying, asking for additional information regarding the job titles. Some job titles can range across multiple occupational categories. And so we've received comments regarding clarification on how vast some of those job titles actually reach. But for the most part, we've heard positive feedback in terms of persons looking to hire Bermudians in certain categories where those categories have been closed.
Okay. I'm just sorry, I'm trying to read my handwriting here. So I think you said 400 families 400 additional families were on some sort of economic and social support?
Correct. And so when those individuals are now on FA, that means those households have been assessed, and it's been determined that their income is not enough for the household expenditure. And as a result, those families are now placed on financial assistance or the supplemental unemployment benefit. And
is it either or? Is that what you're saying?
The 2/3, or I would say more closer to 75% of those individuals are on FA. The remaining quarter are on the supplemental unemployment benefit.
And that was that's since when?
That's since I would say March of this year. Last year, I'm sorry.
March of last year.
Correct.
Okay, so how many in total then? How many families in total?
Roughly around 400.
No, sorry, that's 400 additional ones since
Correct.
March, you're saying?
Oh, the overall
numbers.
We are estimating close to 2,250 individuals who will now be on FA.
Oh, in total, okay, 2250, okay. And the unemployment insurance program. I'm just trying to get a sense of how that works. You know, you're saying that this is going to be brought forward once there's been some further discussions.
Correct. So we have an unemployment insurance fund in the Public Treasury Act. What we're having consultation on right now is the mechanism in which we as a collective fund that unemployment insurance fund. Right now, the government is the only contributor. However, that is unsustainable. Understanding that the government just had to pay out $58 million for unemployment benefits, plus the government has to spend out additional expenditure for those families that are now on FA. As a result, we want to ensure that there is a sustainable social protection in place for when persons are displaced from the workforce moving forward. And an unemployment insurance provides that social safety net, but also requires an input by employers and employees. We are determining what is the best mechanism to ensure that there is a sustainable pool of funds in the account, and then ensure that we have proper administration of the program.
Is there any indication what size this fund should be? You know, how much yield should be annually to make that happen, to make it viable?
We are going to conduct actuarial analysis to determine what will be the appropriate level of funds that should be placed into the fund for it to be sustainable.
I guess the question I really try to get to is there any likelihood that you could end up with a situation where the government doesn't have to actually contribute anything because enough's coming from the labor force and the employers?
But the government as an employer will contribute. Whether or not the government will be responsible for any shortfall in the fund moving forward, if there is a lack of funds, that is all being discussed and worked out now.
Okay. Just one other thing. There's something there about, my handwriting is getting worse, sorry. You were talking about the training for 110 people. That's, is that the total number of people who've taken up the training exercises? You put on a number of programs.
Correct. So the 110 people consist of those people who have registered and are currently participating in the training programs that we initiated at the end of last year.
Did you expect a larger number? I mean, I would have thought the number would have been.
All of the programs were fully prescribed, so no, we didn't expect a larger number. We have enough demand to run another cohort of a number of programs. So
another 110 people. So another 110 people.
Certainly, there is enough demand. We have much more than 110 people who are currently unemployed who are seeking some form of assistance.
Okay. Minister, thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the media? All right, thank you all for attending and have a great day.